hard to believe, but barely more than half a century ago, convenience stores in their traditional format did not exist in Asia or in Japan. In 51 years, we're now at a point where Japan has 56,000 convenience stores and probably the biggest density of convenience stores in the world. We're going to talk about the Japanese market, the Asian market in general, and talk about a NACS event that we have coming up in February in Tokyo. Joining us today for our conversation is Mark Wohltmann. He is director of NACS Global. And Mark, you've been to Tokyo multiple times, once on business at least, once on vacation, checking out the market. Can you give us a sense of what's unique about Japan and specifically the Tokyo market in terms of convenience stores?
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I think I'm still kind of thinking about Japan, even though it has been a couple of weeks that I have been back now. As you mentioned, I've been there a few times. I really like the market, really like the culture, the people. It's very, very interesting, and it's very different to many markets around the world, many cultures around the world that I see whilst traveling to look at convenience store and fuel retail. I think you mentioned one element, that is the density of convenience stores. So especially in the metropolises, especially in Tokyo, you have a convenience store in every street corner. There are 3 or 4 major brands really that split the market. But it's not just about convenience stores. You find convenience retail, and when we talk about convenience retail, think about the future of what we're talking about for convenience retailers in terms of food service, food for now, fresh food offers. You see supermarkets competing very, very intensely with convenience stores in Tokyo, in Japan, in general. And you have, as a consumer, you have just so many offers. And to round this up, I guess, as an intro, the one thing that struck me most is the quality of food in convenience stores. I did not expect that. So I went out and I spent 2 weeks there. And whilst they have fantastic sushi and ramen and everything, I mainly ate convenience store food all the time because it is just so good. And I didn't know that. And only after I visited, I actually read some online blogs and some travel blogs and so on. And people are posting online whilst visiting Japan, not just pictures of Mount Fuji. They actually post pictures of convenience store food just because it is so good.
And of course, they post pictures of Mount Fuji with the convenience store in the foreground because there's a couple of those famous pictures. I think there's a Lawson's and I think there's a 7-Eleven that are just like famous. Google it.
Yes.
You got to have that convenience store in the foreground with that beautiful view of Mount Fuji. So the Asian markets, they vary. I was in Shanghai a couple of years ago, and for the NACS Convenience Summit Asia 2019, so it was more than a couple of years ago. But there, the focus was really on the melding of the online with the brick and mortar, the new retail, I believe, was the term that was coined, that focused on the Chinese market. Japan seems to be more around, no, they didn't invent convenience stores, but they kind of perfected them. And it is a super convenience culture over there. And there's some reasons for that, I imagine, in terms of demographics. But what are some of the ways that the stores are different that people just don't think of? Because like you talk about people taking pictures of convenience stores, it almost seems like when somebody goes to Buc-ee's in the U.S., they have to talk about it. Anytime you go to Japan, you see people just posting about stores in Japan and stores in Tokyo in particular. You mentioned the food, but what is that whole experience? What do they do different?
You just mention something that I think really is an underlying thing for Japan, the Japanese culture. You said perfection. And I think what Japan is known most for in terms of our industry is operational excellence. If you look behind the scenes, how things work, how things are operated, it's just amazing how much they think about detail, how much they look into detail, how much they really want to make sure that every tiny bit is 100% correct, which can be sometimes, as a Westerner, if you're there, can be frustrating because things might take a little bit longer, and you think, "Oh, that's not necessary. I'm happy with 80%." No, the Japanese are not happy with 80%. It has to be 100%. Um, you can get in Japan, you can get something that is called chicken sushi. If you haven't heard about that, it's basically raw chicken. It's very tender, really nice tasting raw chicken. So tell me, where in the world can you buy raw chicken and eat
Well,
that?
aren't there some regulations in countries about whether or not you can even sell it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And also in Japan, you have to have a license to produce it, to sell it, to offer it. There are very strict hygiene controls and all of that. Food safety is number one. But because the Japanese are so strict with all their rules and regulations and really following it to the letter, it is a country where just everything works. And this is a country where everything works so well that you can even eat raw chicken because you can be sure that that will not make you sick.
Okay, well, hold my feet to the fire. I will try it when I'm there. Uh, I know one of the other big things about Japan that stand out is I've heard that deliveries are just wildly accelerated compared to what you'd see in other countries. That it used to be the U.S. model for convenience stores. We're going back decades. You'd get distribution once every 2 weeks, something like that. Then maybe weekly, and now you get daily distribution in the U.S. You are really on top of things, but I heard also in some areas, or all areas, there's multiple deliveries per day, perhaps by day part. How do they pull this off, and how do you manage something like that if that's the case?
Yes, this definitely exists and has been there for a long time. Actually, a lot of convenience stores, especially in urban areas, are very small, really small. And if you want to um, really want to offer something to your consumer all day long, you were mentioning day parts, you have to make sure that you get deliveries more than once a day. Because you don't have a stock room, you don't have any space where you can leave that. Real estate prices are really high, especially in Tokyo. There is no space for anything. The way they pull it off is probably once again a really good process and sticking to that process. They mastered how they package the right size, the right number of items per box, how many boxes in what kind of tray, how many trays in what kind of van, what size van can access what street or aisle or wherever the convenience store is. And once you set it up and you stick to that process, it just works like clockwork.
And they're more rule followers over there, so it's not going to be like New York where cars are double parked and triple parked. They figured that out too, so
Yes.
that all makes sense. And
Yes,
and having
absolutely. I mean, this totally helps, and on the other side, the consumer really appreciates that. So convenience stores, or as the Japanese call them, konbinis, konbinis are really part of everyday life for every person in Japan. It is something that you spend your lunchtime at. They all have some at least minimalist seating somewhere. You can spend a few minutes there, have your lunch in store, no matter how small that store is. You buy your food for home because Tokyo is a metropolis, same as we experienced this year or last year um, in Seoul. People have smaller and smaller apartments, and more young people don't even have kitchens in their apartments. All they have is a microwave. So the convenience store becomes really your number one shopping destination.
So, how you said they're very small. The typical U.S. convenience store used to be 40 feet by 60 feet, 2,400 square feet. That was the traditional 7-Eleven model for a long time. Now, of course, stores are 3,000 square feet, 5,000, 10,000 sometimes. But in Tokyo, they make it work with what, about 1,000 square feet or something like that. I'm not going to do the meters translation, but they're about half the size of a small convenience store in the U.S., aren't they?
Yes, so you have very different models. You have a lot of really small stores, and when I say you find one on every street corner, then most of them are really small. In between, you have larger ones. They all the players, be it 7-Eleven, Family Mart, Lawson, or Mini Stop, they all experiment with different kinds of formats that some of them are really different brands, some of them are the same brand but different style. If they are located on the street level and catering to the passing by consumer, or if they are located in an office building, Tokyo has a lot of high rises. In every high rise, in every office building, there is a basement floor where you have restaurants and shops in every building. And that also means in every building you have a convenience store. And that is more catered towards the office consumer, of course, what they want, what they need. So the assortments can be very different and very specialized, which means you can get away with a smaller footprint because they know exactly how their who their customers.
So you said stores are tend to, or more likely compared to the US, which they never are essentially, in basements. So typically, US, you drive up to one, it's above ground, they probably sell gas. I imagine there's a little bit of fuel sales sold connected to convenience stores, but probably not much. I know Island of Manhattan has something like 35 gas stations. It's really, the real estate's too much to make a couple cents a gallon. So over in Japan, you were saying that in Tokyo, stores are often underground. Um, do any sell gas or have a gas presence?
No. That's a very short answer. So Japan is one of those markets in the world, despite being a developed, highly evolved market. Fuel stations just sell fuel. They might have a vending machine in the office or something like that, but it's not common for fuel stations to have a convenience shop. Now, having said that, what I saw in Tokyo is a very interesting symbiosis. There is a plot. It's a corner plot. One of the petrol operators owns the plot. They build a petrol station, um, a little bit to the rear of the plot, really,
Mhm.
and to the front of the plot, they put a building up, and they didn't want to operate anything in that building, so they are renting it out to, in this case, 7-Eleven. So 7-Eleven has a two-story convenience store. Ground floor is your typical convenience store on the larger side. First floor is seating area with coffee offer and everything that you would expect. It looks like this is one. It looks like there is a petrol station with a convenience shop, but it is actually two operators that just happen to be on the same plot. But that's an exception. So
Mhm.
most sites in Japan, it's standalone convenience and standalone fuel.
I remember going back to when I was in Shanghai in 2019. One of the things I thought was interesting is because people don't drive nearly as much. It was, I think, a metropolis of 27 million people. So, traffic can be an issue. One of the things they did there is the few places that sold gas, they also sold very heavy items also at the forecourt. So you could buy a huge jug of cooking oil, a huge bag of
Yeah.
rice, and a couple other things that they put right in your trunk while you're filling up. So seeing different things from around the world, and obviously, the cooking oil and rice, it's a staple of cooking over there. Were there any things, and you've visited convenience stores on probably more continents and more countries than just about anybody out there. What surprises you when you go to Japanese convenience stores, that every time you go there, it's like, I forgot about this. This is really something of note.
If you look at the well, when we talk about convenience stores, and if you look at the development of convenience stores, how where did they come from? As you mentioned in the beginning, they didn't exist until, I don't know, 50 years ago or something, 60 years ago.
Hmm.
And we're always talking about change in convenience retail, how convenience retail is evolving. What is the next step, the next bit of convenience retail? Um, Now, for quite some time, convenience retail was top up shopping, was emergency purchases in many countries. And then it expanded into sometimes into more supermarket style offers, sometimes more into food service offers. But one thing that I think everyone had in common around the world was coffee. We added coffee in different ways. And then coffee was evolving into from the classic filter coffee
Hmm.
to a barista style offer. And from there, we um, kind of expanded it into more food service items around the coffee. We've been asking the question for quite some time: what is next in coffee? What's the next thing? Is barista style coffee that's it? Or
Hmm.
is there a next generation of coffee? And that was something that surprises me again and again and again when I get to Japan, because they really show you the future of coffee, the next thing in coffee, which is a mix of barista style, of your machine, one click machine that gets you a cappuccino, whilst right next to it, you get a handmade pour over coffee. Whilst right next to it, you can actually choose between your beans, and you have 10 beans that you can choose from. And the description is like choosing wine. And it really gets very personalized in how you consume your coffee, how you have your coffee. And what surprises me with that, I paid 10 US dollars for a pour over coffee in one shop. 10 US dollars. That was, I think it was a ripoff. But this is people, well, people pay for that because
Hmm.
people want that next step of coffee.
I don't think we're too far off from that price point in the US when you get to some types of coffee, when you get to all those different things that everybody complain about their kids now. That there are coffees out there that are already cost you $8 when they do all that fancy stuff to it. I think it's
You,
really coffee's
you,
a great thing to look at.
yes. You have to bear one thing in mind, though. It's also something that, in general, surprised me. There is the thinking out there that Tokyo is expensive. Tokyo is one of the most expensive cities in the world, and you wouldn't go there to go on vacation because everything is so expensive. Um, if you want to live there, yes, real estate is crazy. Real estate is you only can afford, no matter how much you earn, a really tiny apartment in the city. But everyday life, you have to remember Tokyo was one of the most expensive cities, late 80s, early 1990s. But then Japan had a deflation area for nearly 2 decades. The dollar is very strong, the yen is very weak. So if you go there as a visitor right now, it's not that expensive. And to put it into perspective, my $10 pour over coffee, if I go to a regular convenience store and have my regular coffee there, it probably cost me three or four. So that's the price comparison there.
Well, I think you set up the next point that we'd want to talk about. If you want to visit Tokyo, the there's no better time than now because NACS has two international events a year. They have the Convenience Summit Asia and Convenience Summer Europe. The Convenience Summit Europe is in May in Copenhagen. The Convenience Summit Asia is February 22 to 28. At least that's when I'm flying over there. That's not necessarily the full time of the meeting, but that's going to be in Tokyo. We you verbally talked us through one of the, I think the coolest things is we're going on market tours while we're there,
Yes.
and you've scoped out so many different tours that people be taking. And one of the things is you made them all walking distance, walking plus public transport accessible. And public transport there is, again, unlike any place else in the world. It is efficient. It is not perfect, but pretty close to perfect. So there's an opportunity beyond what we're going to see here in sessions from various experts talking about trends and what's going on in the world and what it means to your stores, but to see what you have talked about and really take back to your business. I can see where this is working. I can see where this is working, not just in convenience stores, but you have us going to drugstores, these unique stores that are unstaffed. And I saw a news report just today about one of these stores in Tokyo actually has workers in Sweden for the unmanned store. So you're going to see a variation of the future when you go to Tokyo. And the good news is these are guided tours, and you don't have to figure this out on your own. So it's a great opportunity. Is there anything different in outside of our channel in how they have businesses? Is it the same thing, a focus on convenience because of smaller apartments and all that, whether it's drugstores, supermarkets, etc.?
There's a very high focus on quality. There's also a very high focus on quality products, and because of that, I think there is a really high competition when it comes to especially food for now, or food you just need to reheat or something, from convenience stores to supermarkets to department stores. Daimaru in Tokyo department store, they it's a department store, right? And so they sell everything from clothing to washing machines to whatever. And in their food court, they sell more than 10,000 meals a day. 10,000 meals a day.
10,000.
And you can get everything: a bento box, a sushi to go, a whatever you fancy, whatever kind of cuisine you want. And that is just amazing to see, and amazing to see how people really use that. What's very famous there is their sandwiches, the sandos as they call them, the egg sandos, the fruit sandos, beautifully presented. And this is being sold everywhere. So there's a lot of focus on quality, a lot of focus on presentation, and that not just in our channel, but in adjacent channels as well. And you're right, on our store tours, we have 3 different tours, and we will really immerse ourselves into Tokyo. We'll not be on a bus or something driving outside the city. So this is the beauty if you don't have motorway stations or petrol stations that are way out, but you have to see. So here we will really stay in the city, but we have 3 tours where we will use the underground, the metro. We will become like everyone who lives in Tokyo, and get on the same journey during the day. Take the metro, visit convenience stores, eat at convenience stores, look what the supermarkets are doing. We will be, because of the time of day, we will be able to see people buying breakfast, buying lunch. We have 3 different tours on 3 different days. Um, and I can just agree with you. It is no better time to come with us to Tokyo right now, because these tours that we put together, they are fantastic.
And I don't want to undersell all the content that will be taking place there and the networking. That's a big part of any NACS event. But the market tours seem to be something that need more explanation because they are unique to the convenience summits that NACS puts on, where um, it's not just an intellectual conversation about trends. You see it, you talk about it, you learn about it, and then you take home all kinds of ideas. And I think
Ab-
that's what's unique about these events.
Absolutely. And I think one element that is really critical for this as well is you see all that, you immerse yourself, you really experience, you get the information from the retailers about the stores. You can ask questions, but you can also be a customer, right? You can experience this like a local customer. And then what's most important I find is the people that you are with. So it's not just you visit a convenience store and you see something and you miss something else and you think, yeah, that's fine or not. You actually have people on the store tours with you that have a similar job that you have, similar questions that you have, but they are from a very different part of the world. And it makes perfect sense to say, whoa, I just saw this in the store. What do you think about that? And the other person might say, oh, yeah, we do that in our country all the time. But hey, here's something else I saw. And you might think, oh, I missed that, right? I took that for granted. So, really talking to your peers about what you're seeing and how you're experiencing it, I think that is a big part of the learning. And you mentioned we have multiple events around the world. I think we do 13 events outside of the US in total, smaller, bigger ones, and the two biggest ones are the European and the Asian ones. But our Convene Summit Asia really has become kind of a global forum. We have delegates not just from across Asia Pacific, but from Europe, from the US, from Latin America, from Africa joining us. Really, because there's so much to learn if you see what is happening and if you talk to your peers from somewhere else about that.
Specifically, I believe the programming for the Convenience Summit Asia is February 25th to 27th. Tokyo is the epicenter of convenience. I am very much looking forward to this event. Go to convenience.org and look under events for Convenience Summit Asia, learn more, to register, all that stuff. And then I'm going to do my big test. I'm going to take two pictures and I'm going to see which one goes viral. Is it the picture of the convenience store with Mount Fuji in the background, or is it a picture of me eating chicken sushi? And that'll be the big test with my dozens of followers. So we'll see how that goes, and that'll be, like I said, my big test.
That's fantastic. I just have, if you join us, do it like Jeff does. So you're flying in early, right? There's so much to see. We put together three great tours. We have 3 days of really great content at our conference. But please don't just come for 3 days. There's so much more to see in our industry, outside of our industry, and also from a cultural perspective. So staying a day or two more makes perfect sense. And we have a long list of stores that you can see outside of Tokyo that we couldn't accommodate during our event. Happy to share that with anyone who's interested.
Yeah, and I won't belabor the point. There's some really cool ones that you found that are just kind of one-off things too, like how people can work remotely, or people with any sort of concerns about how do they work and things like that. There's one, I'll leave this as a teaser, where you order your stuff and somebody reaches out and hands it to you with a gorilla glove, which through a hole in a wall, and it all
Yes.
is legit. It just sounds like, okay, there's my other viral moment. So I got three things now. Mark, I know we're going to see you a lot on the road because you're going to be at the Connexus annual meeting. You'll be at various other things before Tokyo. But I am so much looking forward to this and hope to see a whole bunch of you guys there. It's a great event, and thanks for joining us today, Mark, and talking about the tours and what else they can see when they hit Tokyo. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.